I kind of had in my mind for us to talk about today is based on something that happened yesterday. So I looked at the tracks. It looked like, for the most part, most of the people that actually got established for the start across the rim actually made the whole course line. So it seemed like what we said earlier about the crossing being the crux is what actually played out. So I was thinking one of us can talk about their strategies on successful river crossings to avoid a rim job. And I was thinking maybe somebody who was flying a bee glider or not too long ago could talk about that.
Yeah, that is a challenge. It's a pretty big crossing, so it's difficult, especially if you're on a bee glider. It can be difficult. My general rule is I don't leave the butte until I'm at least 6 to 6,500 over. At least, like 6 grand would be my like bottom boundary.
Over the grass?
Yeah.
6 grand AGL or
No, 6,000 feet. Not
sea level or AGL?
sea level. Yeah. And that's low. Like, I mean, I really don't want to leave the butte till at least 65. And with the conditions we've had, like we've been getting up to 8 plus some days. So there really is no reason to be leaving the butte any lower than 65 in the past few days that we've flown. And then you're gonna have so many markers, and especially on if it's a butte start, you just have so many people. Let some people go in front of you. You have so many markers just showing you where that lift is, and sometimes it's just even like you can start going and you might get a little bubble just right here. If you're really worried about making that crossing, take all that opportunity. Get a little bit more height. Like when you can be almost halfway over and you'll get a little bubble. Take it if you're really worried about that crossing. And then, yeah, I mean, just use all that opportunity. People, yeah.
So I had a couple of friends who flew yesterday, some students of ours who were flying geos and actually did land on the rim. So I kind of had this discussion with them this morning, so it's kind of fresh on my mind, so if it's all right, I can jump in here. Everything you're trying to do, especially on a lower performance glider, is increase your chances of success. And there's a lot of little things you can do along the way. Now, the first thing is get to the top of it, right? So if you're getting to 7,500 and you're looking up and there's still people higher than you, or you were higher earlier, make sure you're at the absolute max you can get. 1. 2, as you're going across, if you hit any lift, even if it's in the middle of the river, and especially if it's drifting you in the direction you want to go, take it. If you can spend a minute, 5 minutes drifting in zeros, or even climbing just a little bit on that crossing, it's going to totally increase your chances of success on the other side compared to somebody who might have been next to you and flowing straight through it. The second thing I'm going to do is shift gears. So when I get over there, you might get 3 or 5 meter climbs above the butte. Is when I get over there, I'm going to take the first bit of lift I can get, and I'm going to hang on to it for dear life. That first climb is often just a chip shot to get you established onto the flat. So taking a weak climb before you get to or on the rim is one way. And like Blake was saying, if you can go over it at max lift with a bunch of other people and have all that information with you or in front of you, that's going to increase your chances of success as well. Anyone else got some tips? Chuck.
Yesterday was a very interesting day with the start being way over on the other side. If you checked the forecast, you would have seen that cloud base would have slowly risen throughout the day. So the optimum time to cross was not early in my book, but it was at a time that gave you enough time to establish a cloud base on the other side. So that was me hedging my bets of, hey, the day is going to progress, I'm going to get progressively higher. When I'm getting progressively higher, I've got a better chance of success of establishing on the other side. So that's what I did. That was my strategy for yesterday, and it worked reasonably well. I saw some gaggles peeling off early, and then I watched them get on the other side, and they didn't seem to have such a sweet time establishing on the other side. So I'm glad I hung out later for a higher base before jumping through.
So what I try to do is keep it as simple as possible. And so simple as possible, and then the highest probability for success. And you climb here to the top of the lift, and you know how it is. If you're waiting for people, and the group goes, you might not be at the top of the lift. But being that you're just going to glide anyway, you have the opportunity to leave when you want to go. And so you climb the base here, and then you go. Doesn't matter if you're by yourself, because there's other gliders on the other side. There's good pilots. They're going to find something. They're going to make it work. And so you're just gliding from here to there. It's that simple. And so you just leave here at the top of the lift, and you know when you get over there, the 30 pilots that are over there already are going to figure it out. And then you're going to take advantage of the fact that they are sorting it out right now, and you're going to be there in 15, 20 minutes on glide. And by the time you get there, it'll be better than what you see from here right now, because the day is just turning up. And so even if it doesn't look that great over there, it's going to be fine. And you might as well get over there if there's enough pilots to help you find it. So it's really simple. Point A to point B, find the top of the lift.
So in the chance that that you have made some mistakes, and I saw this with a few pilots yesterday, you went too low or you're on a lower end glider and you're like, oh, this is it, here comes my rim job. Don't just send it really, really low into the dirt, right? Because there is so much altitude from that rim to the soccer field. And I've climbed out plenty of times after I turned and burned instead of just going in low where it's dusty territory, you're low to the ground, your chances are a lot lower. If you give yourself some altitude, you can still climb out. And I saw people do that. I saw some people just dirt, and I saw some people just kind of give themselves some altitude over the terrain, and they climbed out of there, and they got established, and they went on their way. So in my opinion, it's worked for me if I'm really, really low at the rim to turn around, give yourself altitude, give yourself a chance to get out of there, because you can do it.
What is altitude? Time. Altitude is time.
got lots of time from that rim to the soccer field.
I'm curious, is that when you're on the far side of the rim or the near side of the rim?
Are you across the river or not?
Yeah, across the river. If you leave the butte, and I cannot tell you how many times on my low B, I left the butte thinking like, oh yeah, I got this, gotten halfway there over the river and been like, ooh, I don't got this. Come back here. This is the major trigger in the whole area, right? Come back to the butte. I don't care if it's after the start. If you are not going to make the rim on the crossing, you're not going to make goal. So, what's your best chance of making goal? Come back to the butte. Cycle back up. Get as high as you can. Try again. I mean, I've done it 3 times before, cycled. Just, yeah. If you don't want to give up, don't give up. Come back. Climb high. Try again.
Cool. Any questions?
Good
Yes.
advice.
I have a question about the
Good
staying on the
advice.
coastline. So we talk about how you should diverge from the coastline if there's a lift you see. But what are the parameters there you check? Like there's a lift off the coastline, maybe on the opposite side. There's some nice cloud, or I see some birds climbing, but maybe no other gliders because it's off the coastline. Just how much do you diverge, and what are the parameters you're looking at there?
Yeah, so the question is how often are we following the arrow down optimized, and how far, what decisions how far off course line are we willing to go to find climbs?
I want Boston to answer this because he did a series of right-hand turns out there for no reason that I could fathom. He found the big thermal. So, what do you see?
In my mind, I think of paraglide racing. The gliding is important, but I think in general we're climbing vertically, or we're racing vertically a lot of the time. And so, yeah, you can take pretty big deviations off course line if it's going to result in a 4-meter climb, and that's going to put you ahead. Because if you think about how much vertical space we have, you know, even if I'm a K over here off optimized, if I'm at now 10 grand and they're still down at 5, I can make up that distance really fast. And so the most efficient way through the course line is finding the strong climbs, not necessarily just flying the shortest distance possible. The stronger the climb we're in, the least amount of time we're spending circling, the more time we're actually gliding. So you might be traveling a longer distance, but you're doing it for longer so you can make more ground, if that makes sense. So we're gliding more than we're climbing if we're finding strong climbs. So in terms of parameters, I'm not a super analytical pilot. I'm more intuitive, so I kind of just follow my gut. But, you know, I wouldn't go like 90 degrees off course line unless I'm really low. If I'm super low, I'm probably kind of ignoring course line. I'm just trying to get back up because I can't do anything without any altitude. So if I'm super low, yeah, I'm probably not even kind of thinking about course line. I'm just trying to find a climb to get back up. But if I'm high and established, I won't go 90, maybe 45, between 45, maybe. Yeah.
You still didn't say why, what you saw.
I saw, so we were, from the start, what I noticed is that it seemed like the south and the west side of the clouds were feeding the clouds. And we were headed towards a cloud street, kind of on the cloud was here. We were kind of headed towards the left edge, which to me wasn't the side that was feeding. So I deviated off to the right to try to fly that sun shade line from my knowledge of before the start where I thought that cloud was getting fed from. And at first me and Jordan flew through a lot of sync, but then we got it good, and then we were, you know, making it look good. So yeah, that was like a cross country decision. Ooh, fighter jet.
One thing I noticed in I followed you in weight shift just left and right.
Yeah. Well, what I've learned, one of the most frustrating things about leading, and it actually happened during last task, is flying right next to a climb, past it, and then looking behind you and the people behind you because they're more spread out catch it. That actually happened to me once yesterday, and I had to fly backwards to the climb, which is sometimes the most efficient move. But when you're out alone and you have no information, like doing some zigzags, I was kind of just feeling the lift, trying to sniff out lifty lines and trying to cover more ground to find that thermal, so I didn't fly past it. Give it to you guys.
Hey,
Steve.
Austin, so you said you were flying along above a shade line. And how vertically above that shade line were you, or how much downwind from that? Is there a way for you to say what, you know, were you straight over it, or were you thinking the thermal was tilted a little?
I tried to draw a picture or a line from where I thought the cloud was feeding from down to that shade line, and was trying to put myself in between that line. Yep. Same as if you were to find like a big trigger and a cumulus cloud. So if we had a cumulus cloud over the butte and there's some wind, you're right, we're drawing a line from where we think the thermal's coming from to where it's going and trying to put ourselves in that line.
This is one of those things that I should do and don't do enough. But you're asking how far to deviate off, and what I try to do is think about if I can get there and not be so significantly lower than the other pilots that thermal is likely gone, I should go, especially if I'm in sync. So if I see pilots 5K away in an awesome climb, there's no way that I'm going to deviate and get there and hope that it's still there. But that's based on my altitude and the other gliders that I'm using as indicators. I'll deviate if I can get there and not be significantly lower than the lowest glider in that, so I have a chance of actually catching it. Because it sucks to deviate and go off and they're all 2,000 feet above you, and who knows if the thermal's still there. Great. This might be on the lower technical side of things, but I've seen this mistake made. I've made it to deviate off course line. If you take into consideration the wind, the strength, and the direction. If you're deviating off downwind for a thermal, you see people climbing, just remember at some point you're going to have to make up that ground. You know, keep your turn point in mind. I've seen people get blown, and I've been blown so far off course line because I was chasing something downwind, and really had to turn into the wind to fight back up. So I still am trying to remember that every time I make a decision.
One of the things that I've found is don't forget to look behind and see what's happening behind you. The pack might have a much stronger climb behind you than where you are. So always look behind and see what's going on. That might save your ass sometimes.
Just one other thing that I only started practicing recently but helped a ton is if I'm near a turn point, figuring out if I'm drifting towards the turn point when I'm thermaling or if I'm drifting away from the turn point when I'm thermaling. So if I'm in the middle of the sky and people are climbing and I'm close to the turn point, if it's drifting towards, I want to take that climb before I hit the turn point so I can drift into it. If it's drifting away, maybe if I have enough altitude to tag the turn point and come back to that climb, then I'm going to be drifting further on course line and doing it the opposite way. You're drifting away and then you go to it, it's, you've lost a lot of ground.
Any other questions? All right.